November 12, 1942. The western desert lay quiet except for drifting sand and the wreckage of another supply column. Among the debris sat an abandoned American vehicle, its crew long gone after their position collapsed. German regulations said a captured vehicle should either be destroyed or left behind, but the reconnaissance company's commander paused. He wanted to know whether this machine, small and odd-looking though it was, could serve their unit. He ordered the best mechanics to examine it. Within half an hour, long before they delivered their final verdict, the German mechanics realized that this little American Jeep, marked with a simple dashboard plate reading Willys MB, was not just usable. It challenged assumptions they had held for years about German mechanical superiority. The first shock came when they raised the hood. Everything inside was arranged with almost insulting simplicity. The wiring was color-coded. Components that normally required specialized tools were positioned so that anyone with basic mechanical skills could reach them. Nothing required a factory-trained technician. The Go Devil engine itself, producing only 60 horsepower from 134 cubic inches, was unimpressive on paper to men used to German precision machinery. But the longer the mechanics stared, the more they understood that this engine wasn't meant to be a technical marvel. It was meant to be repaired quickly, built cheaply, and kept running by ordinary soldiers. Every bolt was standardized. Every part seemed designed for rapid replacement. The Americans had clearly expected that farm boys and factory workers, not seasoned engineers, would be maintaining these machines. And by 1942, the difference between American and German design philosophy had become unmistakable. The U.S. had already produced hundreds of thousands of Jeeps. Germany, with all its vaunted engineering talent, had built barely 50,000 Kubelwagons. The officers arrived to check on the progress. "Can we use it?" one asked. The senior mechanic hesitated, only out of politeness. "It's remarkable," he admitted. When another officer objected that German engineering was the finest in the world, the mechanic merely pointed to the Jeep's transfer case. "One lever engages four-wheel drive," he said, "just one." Germany's Volkswagen Type 82 Kubelwagen was a clever design, lighter, more fuel-efficient, and without a vulnerable radiator thanks to its air-cooled engine. But its greatest flaw had always been its two-wheel drive layout. In North Africa's soft sands, in Italy's steep hills, and on the Russian front's bottomless mud, that limitation caused endless trouble. By contrast, the Jeep's simple 4x4 system, combined with low-range gearing, let it crawl over terrain that brought German vehicles to a halt. The tests continued over the next 3 days, and the results spoke for themselves. The Jeep drove through deep sand where Kubelwagen spun helplessly. It carried loads beyond its rated capacity. It endured abuse that would have bent lighter German frames. Its crude leaf spring suspension was far easier to repair than the Kubelwagen's delicate torsion bars. Even its electrical and fuel systems were forgiving, capable of running on poor-quality gasoline that would have crippled German vehicles. Most unsettling to the mechanics was the weight. At nearly 2,500 pounds, the Jeep was far heavier than the Kubelwagen. German engineers would have viewed that as inefficient. But American engineers had clearly decided that sturdiness mattered more in war than perfect efficiency. The Jeep was built to survive neglect, rough driving, and combat conditions. As word spread across the Africa Corps, officers and technicians from neighboring units visited to inspect the captured Jeep. Their reactions followed a predictable arc: skepticism at first, then surprise, then reluctant respect. Eventually, many saw the larger truth. This Jeep embodied an entirely different manufacturing philosophy, one optimized for mass production, not fine craftsmanship. A supply officer who had worked in German automotive factories explained the difference more bluntly than most. American parts were cast, stamped, and simplified, not machined to perfection. The U.S. sacrificed refinement in exchange for speed and quantity. A semi-skilled worker could assemble an American engine far faster than a skilled German craftsman could build its German equivalent. And panels meant for refrigerators or washing machines back home were now being punched into Jeep bodies by the thousands. In total war, he argued, production volume mattered more than engineering elegance. Technical reports documenting the Jeep's capabilities flowed up the German chain of command. These reports echoed others from the Eastern Front and the Pacific. America's manufacturing power was overwhelming. Intelligence estimates showed the U.S. was producing more military vehicles in 1942 than Germany, Italy, and Japan combined. Ford's Willow Run factory alone was turning out a B-24 bomber every hour. Liberty ships were being launched faster than U-boats could sink them. The single Jeep captured in the desert became so valuable that units bartered for it. When the Africa Corps surrendered in Tunisia in May 1943, many German soldiers had already concluded that American industry was unstoppable. Their education did not end with surrender. Transported by American trucks to North African ports, they were shipped across the Atlantic aboard Liberty ships built in a matter of weeks. Their trains across the United States ran with a punctuality and comfort they rarely experienced at home. And everywhere they went, they saw motor vehicles, thousands of them, seemingly endless in number. At Camp Hearn, Texas, German mechanics volunteered to help maintain the camp's fleet. Working beside American motor pool sergeants revealed even more about U.S. methods. American mechanics were not craftsmen chasing perfection. They were practical problem solvers. If something broke, they fixed it fast. If the right part wasn't available, they improvised. And if a vehicle was beyond repair, a replacement arrived almost immediately. One American sergeant explained their philosophy with disarming friendliness. "We build things so anyone can fix 'em," he said. Their manuals were written at a 6th grade reading level. Their tools were standardized. Spare parts were always in stock. Everything from Jeeps to trucks to half-tracks shared components. A German mechanic asked how many Jeeps the U.S. produced. The sergeant shrugged. "Thousands a week, I guess." The German was stunned, but the evidence sat all around him. Another American, a former Ford employee, described Willow Run, the massive bomber plant outside Detroit. Before joining the Army, he had worked on the assembly line that was rolling out a complete heavy bomber every 60 minutes. He explained how American manufacturing broke complicated tasks into tiny, repeatable steps so that even unskilled workers could be turned into reliable production laborers. The German mechanic compared this with his own experience.